All right, Ben. So on the show, we focus on foreign policy, obviously, but we also like to keep an eye on the kind of creeping authoritarian movement that is MAGA for a lot of personal reasons, for professional reasons. There's a lot of data points this week. We got armed troops in the streets in D.C. We got pending troop deployments to Chicago and other liberal cities. But we're going to focus on last week's FBI raid on the home of former Trump National Security Advisor and longtime neocon John Bolton. Bolton has been a fierce Trump critic since leaving the administration. Initially, it seemed like the raid on Bolton's home was just a continuation of the prior investigation Trump launched into the publication of Bolton's memoir in 2020. Trump claimed Bolton's book had classified information in it. Bolton said he got the book cleared and that this was just an obvious attempt to prevent the publication of material that might be embarrassing to Trump. The investigation kind of seemed like it went away when Trump lost the election, but this raid clearly revived it or something broader. Then, though, the New York Times added a weird wrinkle over the weekend when they reported that the raid on Bolton's home was based in part on intelligence collected overseas by the CIA, which CIA Director John Ratcliffe then passed on to FBI Director Kash Patel. That raises some large legal and ethical questions since the CIA is barred from collecting intelligence on American citizens. However, there are processes that allow the CIA to pass along information it gathers to law enforcement for prosecution. According to the Times, the search was approved, though, by two separate judges. And it's seeking to determine whether Bolton illegally shared or illegally possessed classified information. So, Ben, like with every investigation about classified shit, like it's so murky and hard to understand or like read through the lines of these reports. To me, it seems like an obvious case of Trump retaliating against a critic. But do you have theories about this weird report about like the CIA's role in maybe precipitating this raid?
Look, first of all, it wasn't a great week for authoritarianism watch.
No.
I mean, we've got
Tough one.
Troops in the streets. We've got the independence of the central bank being compromised. We've got ICE being turned into kind of a mega militia that serves Trump's interests. You know, we could go on. I just noticed someone, wrote a book about the authoritarian playbook a few years ago. We're well beyond it. Trump has kind of smashed through the kind of soft authoritarianism and is kind of skipping ahead to the scarier stuff. So let's just keep that. And that's relevant to the Bolton thing because I think we have to start from the premise that I don't think that there's any way, just one man's opinion, keeping on the right side of the lawyers here, that this is an organic investigation. And in other words, that Bolton is being targeted because of some natural development of a case. And the reason I'd give for that is that while the federal agents were storming his house, Kash Patel was tweeting, nobody's above the law, like we're on the case. And he doesn't do that for normal investigations of whatever level of crime this is. So this does feel like it's in the wheelhouse of retribution and the weaponization of the justice system against his enemies. That's the first thing. The only other thing I'd add to this, you guys have talked about this on Pod Save America. I definitely agree with the fact that Trump likes to start with somebody like a John Bolton that nobody really, has no constituency beyond kind of never Trump Republicans and, had Tim Miller, like the
immediate
Bulwark,
family.
the Bulwark podcast. Yeah, I don't know. Immediate family. But nonetheless, it's worrying. And it's also, it's not just a message to everybody, including people like us, right? It's particularly a message to people that work for Trump. Because remember what Bolton did, his original sin was working for Trump and then leaving and trashing him. And I think Trump is going to be going the extra mile.
Big time.
To make sure that there's no more, anonymous, remember that from Trump 1, no more John Bolton, no more witnesses at the first impeachment, Fiona Hills. He's not hiring those people to begin with, but also I think this is meant to send a message that, like, if you turn against him from the inside, the justice is coming quick, I think.
Yeah. And this is a thing you see from a lot of authoritarians,
yes.
Right? Like if you are a Russian military leader and you become a source for the U.S. and you move to London, you're getting
That's
killed.
who falls off a balcony.
Right. That's what they go after first, right? So that's my gut on what a lot of this. But I guess I didn't realize that a judge from the U.S. District Court for D.C. had written at the time that he was, quote, persuaded that defendant Bolton likely jeopardized national security by disclosing classified information in violation of his non-disclosure agreement obligations, and that Bolton, quote, has gambled with the national security of the United States. Now, you find the right judge who's enough of a stickler, they will, I think, overreact to the inclusion of conversations about things that are technically classified but are widely reported on and known.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, look, there are a couple. So to answer your question on the CI piece of this, it better be something kind of tangible, because there are actually all kinds of regulations about what type of information. This came up with the NSA too, right? I mean, the NSA technically, remember when the Snowden disclosures happened, when we were in government, I was in all these meetings about what happens to all this bulk collection. That's the mass surveillance collection, where essentially in order to be able to spy on certain emails, the NSA is kind of vacuuming up all this stuff. And one of the points that was made is that if you mined everything in the NSA or CIA's collection, you'd catch some crimes. And there was actually and I'm not claiming to be the expert on this, but there's like a hierarchy of things. Like, so for instance, child sex trafficking, for instance, is the kind of thing where the wall can break down, right? But you're not necessarily supposed to just kind of check, put in John Bolton into a search, and then like every single thing that was collected, look for some criminal activity.
He bought weed in 86.
So we don't know. I mean, John Bolton has done some weird things in the past, like the kinds of things that Rudy Giuliani has also done. Like, he was a paid spokesperson for the MEK, that group that was trying to overthrow the Iranian government,
a lot of people are flagging that he did some work for Qatar.
He did, as half the Trump administration
exactly,
did.
as did Pam Bondi, as did Kash Patel, as did all these goobers. Who knows? It sucks that we're all speculating on this. I think this is clear-cut retaliation, but it's like, I don't want to carry water for a guy who I don't know the facts. Yeah,
I'm not carrying water either way. To your point, there's an interesting question here, which is, look, let's take a hypothetical, right? Like, not even apply it to us, someone who served in the Obama administration could go to some conference, in some country after they're in government, and someone could ask them about drone strikes, which are technically all classified. And so if you
they could read a newspaper report.
Yeah. If you say anything, about drone strikes, somebody might say, "Oh, wait a second," and this is the selective use of, essentially, do you say, well, I this is why it's dangerous to say, like, I want to get John Doe, and therefore I'm going to check all the information we have about John Doe. And if I find even a hint of him, emailing some European about something about Ukraine in Bolton was in government in 2018. If John Bolton was like, yeah, we wanted to give them the, anti-tank weapons in 2018, could you say that was somehow a classified conversation? Maybe. Right. And so what I would look for when the information comes out is, does it feel like they worked backwards from the objective of prosecuting John Bolton, or does it seem like there's some investigation that led to John Bolton? This feels right now like they're kind of working down a list of people, and, they tried to find something on the guy.
Yes, I totally agree. And so the other sort of related thing that happened last week, which, again, would have been a massive scandal in the before Trump, was when Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth fired Lieutenant General Jeffrey Cruz, who's the head of the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. The DIA focuses on military intelligence. It's the component of the intelligence community that's within the military. Ben and I used to love flipping through this DIA product called the Defense Intelligence Daily, or the DID. It was all
Nobody called it the DID except you and me.
Okay, it was all cool pictures of foreign missiles and military formations and shit. Whatever, it was interesting. Pistol Pete also fired 2 senior officials of the Navy, including the head of Naval Special Warfare, the guys who oversee the Navy SEALs. It's a big deal. The DIA head was fired very soon after Trump flipped out about a leaked preliminary DIA assessment that the U.S. military strikes on Iran's nuclear sites only set back their nuclear program for a few months. Remember, Trump had claimed that they were totally obliterated. That, by the way, is obviously not true. We will talk in a minute about the diplomacy between the Europeans and Iran over the nuclear program that shows that the problem is not solved. But anyway, Ben, it does seem like another instance here, this firing of the DIA chief of Trump, retaliating against officials who are not critics, just people who state facts that contradict him. But also, as I was thinking about this, when you zoom out and you think about the totality of national security officials who have been purged in 8 months, it is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, fired for being black, literally. Head of Naval Operations, fired for being a woman. Commandant of the Coast Guard, the head of the NSA, the National Security Agency, fired because Laura Loomer figured out his name. The top leaders of the Air Force were fired or resigning. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, fired the leaders of the National Intelligence Council for releasing an assessment about, I think, a Tren de Aragua that was politically inconvenient for Trump. Like, the totality of this is scandalous, yes, but also is going to have a massive impact on the makeup of the military and the intelligence community.
No, we've never seen anything like this, not even just post-Watergate reforms. On the Iran point and then on the other firings, the Iran point is so important, and not just because we focus a lot on Iran in this podcast. Roll back the tape to what we know happened on Iran based on reporting, which is that Tulsi Gabbard herself said that Iran was not weaponizing their nuclear program.
Yep.
She was literally rebuked by Trump publicly and changed her line and said, I was wrong about that or whatever.
After she testified before Congress.
After she testified before Congress. So the message goes to her, on this issue of Iran, the facts, quote unquote facts, or whatever Trump wants them to be.
Right.
Then he bombs them. The whole question of whether it is the right policy to bomb the Iranian nuclear program depends on two things. Did you succeed in totally destroying their program, obliterating, as Trump said? And going forward, will we be able to see, if the Iranians start to try to build a covert nuclear program? Now they've fired someone. This person didn't even write the report. This person didn't leak the report. This person just ran the agency that produced the battle assessment, or the initial one, that said something that Trump didn't say and that Pete Hegseth didn't say, which, by the way, any analyst of Iran's nuclear program that I trust over the years has said, which is that because these facilities are complex, they're underground, you can't obliterate them in one night of airstrikes. It just literally, you'd have to, I don't know, hit the jackpot far beyond anybody could think.
Also, we know that Trump was presented with a much more expansive set of military strikes that would have lasted weeks, and he said no, and he opted for this smaller version, which, again, tells you that there was an option on the table that they thought may have been able to totally obliterate Iran's nuclear program.
That's right. And so the reason this is so dangerous is that the message is now out. Whether you are a line-level analyst writing the report or the head of an agency, your job is to give Trump the facts that he wants, right? And so because of that, we will just never be able to trust, whether it's Iran or any other issue, that the information that they're giving us, that they're using as the basis for their policies, is true information. And just to take the Iran issue, how on earth can we trust the battle assessment or the question of future weaponization? Trump might have an interest. By the way, this isn't even me trying to guess where it's going to go, because he might have an interest in acting like he solved the problem and the Iranians pop up with a nuclear weapon, or he may have an interest in going back into war, and he's saying I just don't know. And so flying blind like this and having the world's most powerful military make decisions about who to go to war with and who to bomb based on just the information Trump wants to get is incredibly, incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, it is bad. You see, Tulsi apparently is promising to cut the DNI budget by 50%. I assume that means not just the intelligence community budget, but the actual DNI's office, which probably not hard to do once you decide that all you're going to do is confirm Trump's priors.
Yeah.
But there's also, even before that, probably some room for some savings.
Well, and the other thing that I think should scare people here is as they kind of move down this purge, right? These roles like that people overseeing the Navy SEALs, these are incredibly powerful roles that operate very much in the shadows.
Yes.
And so we don't know, what the Navy SEALs are doing or what U.S. Special Forces are doing.
Most elite members of the military.
Yeah, and everything we know about Trump and Hegseth would suggest that they want to turn those kinds of capabilities into kind of instruments of Donald Trump's will and interests.
Yep.
And so it should really concern people that, not that in a kind of MSNBC, the every national security professional sacrosanct way. But this is a purge. We now have enough evidence that they, and the kind of people that they're putting in there are MAGA people.
Yeah.
And so between a militarized ICE and a U.S. military that is being turned into a kind of a MAGA extension of Trump, especially elite capabilities like special forces, like what is this going to look like in 2 years, and what might Donald Trump want to do with those capabilities, whether that's strange things in Greenland or the Panama Canal, or whether it's things in the United States. Yeah, exactly.
As a good DIA analyst will tell you, the trend line is not good.
Yes.
That was an excerpt from Pod Save the World, the weekly foreign policy show I host with Ben Rhodes. If you want more Pod Save the World, go over to the Pod Save the World feed and check it out, and please subscribe on YouTube. Also, please subscribe to Pod Save America here on YouTube. We are trying to build a progressive counterweight to all the right-wing crap. A lot of it you find on YouTube. They have huge accounts, quotes like TPUSA or the Daily Wire, have millions and millions of subscribers. And what that means in practice is that when people search for political news on YouTube, they find that garbage, and we want to help them find factual information from a progressive perspective. So please subscribe to Pod Save America.